Now it's time for a review of what's making the headlines in the papers this morning with Dr. Constance Ikoku, Yolanda Roberts, and my humble self, Benga Ashiru. Good morning.
Good morning, Benga. How are you? Good morning, Yolanda.
Good morning, Dr. Constance.
I hope you guys had a good weekend.
A delightful one, indeed.
It was a good one.
Very restful one, at least.
Christmas is by the corner.
You did too. You're not speaking of yourself this morning.
3 days too.
It was so-so. I had a couple of runs up and down, but it was okay.
And a taste of the
could have been
December.
better. It could have been better. No, Abuja is groovy December.
Yeah, okay.
Not dirty December.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's Lagos.
Yes, so remember
Groovy
that.
Abuja.
We are doing groovy, not dirty. All
So
right.
I hope you grooved into some fun.
I tried. I did. I tried. All right, let's look at those stories that are shaping the agenda for you today. We'll be kicking off with this day newspaper. This morning, the release of abducted students and military responses to banditry and kidnapping remains central, showing national concern for safety. Supreme Court case and intra-party dispute continue to shape a political discourse. And from budget matters to legislative and executive decisions, newspapers are showcasing leadership actions. Economic analysis and AFCON coverage provide balance to the news, reflecting daily life and national passions. Now, this day leads with that release of the remaining 130 kidnapped schoolgirls and teachers in Niger State. On the designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern, the United States delegation rules out troop deployment to Nigeria. The point the delegation argues is that the CPC designation is to encourage reforms through diplomatic pressure rather than military intervention. And on the window, President Tinubu is quoted as saying he will not sign Central Gaming Bill on grounds that it is a state affair. Turning to Vanguard newspaper, Vanguard turns attention to the budget as the president explains the 58 trillion naira 2026 budget. And of course, our very own Davido and French Montana headline the opening ceremony at the Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco. APC's dominance of National Assembly is being questioned in one of the pieces here. Daily Independent reports that the House of Representatives is leading the charge for independent candidacy ahead of the 2027 elections. The lead story here highlights the dangers of weak revenue and deficit financing in the new budget, which has been described as President Tinubu's fiscal gamble. Leadership has gone with domestic and foreign investors trading 10.54 trillion naira stocks in 11 months. New Telegraph newspaper focuses on the Supreme Court and a pronouncement on emergency rule, of which Professor Isha Sage says is in conflict with the Constitution, reigniting debate on the powers of the president, as well as what this means. Dangote Refinery begins sale of petrol at 739 naira per litre, and Minister of Works David Omahi tells the opposition to zip their mouth as they had their own time in office. The Punch newspaper raises concerns about Nigeria's export loss of 1 trillion naira following tariffs slapped by President Donald Trump. This is as U.S. export to Nigeria has doubled in contrast within the first 9 months of this year. In Daily Sun, banks are warning about the activities of hackers using Wi-Fi to attack customer accounts. Enugu State government says multiple documents is proof of its ownership of an Abuja property, and Dangote claims cement costs more in Nigeria due to the heavy taxes and regulatory burden. He explained that exported cement is exempted from multiple taxes and levies. Interesting explanation. I'm sure Nigerians will be more upset by that. Moving on to the international headlines, the Daily Telegraph. Here it features commentary from the head of the Equality and Human Rights Commission, urging people to avoid framing migration as a threat and to refocus debate on practical reforms and humane asylum policy. In the Times newspaper, Britain's Health Secretary Wes Streeton backs the country rejoining EU Customs Union. And the United States Attorney General threatened with legal action for delay in releasing the full Epstein files. The Independent reports that Australian Prime Minister was booed at an event to mark 1 week of the Bondi Beach attack, as investigations show huge police sex convictions in the United Kingdom. Newspaper centers Nigel Farage and claims that he would destroy Britain, a country he says he loves, highlighting political tensions between the parties. In Financial Times, foreign buyers are snapping up UK undervalued companies at a rate of 74%, revealing the hunger of private equity firms for assets. The Sun leads with a lighter human interest royal story about Princess Beatrice choosing a skiing holiday with friends over spending Christmas with her father. We may guess why. Her father is Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. Daily Mirror, Daily Star include entertainment-focused stories such as sports coverage. Now let's break down what the stories mean for citizens. Returning to this day newspaper. The girls have been released, the girls and the teachers, after 1 month in captivity, and the U.S. delegation has ruled out boots on the ground. Wenga, your thoughts?
Yeah, this is a point where we should embark on a moment of reflection. Reflections, if lessons have indeed been learned from what has happened in the last couple of weeks, spiraling into 1 month. The girls have been released, and I say congratulations to President Tinubu, in line with consistent with his declaration of emergency on the security sector. Congratulations to the governor of Rivers State, because we tried as much as possible to get his view, and he said that in as much as the remaining abductees have not been released, that he is not a happy man. And congratulations to the parents who have gone through 1 month of trauma and finally to the released children. We should know that these pupils are minors, so not much facts will be gotten from them, and we should also understand that by now it is expected that they should go through psychosocial treatment and medical attention.
You meant Niger State Governor, not Rivers.
No,
that was
I
a
mean,
slip of tongue.
No, okay, I said Rivers State.
Yeah, so
pardon me.
Niger
State Governor Mohammed Bago. I meant, so sorry, maybe I don't know why. So now when we look at this, this is a fallout from the tragedy of largely ungoverned spaces. And now we wonder if the government at all levels is ready to wake up to the reality of state policing, to the reality of safe school initiative that has that a lot in that list. One, that they should have a community group security framework, perimeter fencing, and many other things within that reach. And now they are not coming out to tell us how, if they were released or they were rescued. This is very fundamental in charting the way forward, because we cannot continue to negotiate with bandits and you think that you are not fortifying them at the long run. So we need to know all these facts. And now the coming to the Congress position on Nigeria on whether that the less emphasis on military boots, and I think I completely support that position, because when you look at the situation of Nigeria, we are fighting an asymmetric warfare, and the overemphasis on the kinetic approach in tackling this, it needs to be reviewed. We need a more comprehensive approach. We have 15 million out of school children in the north, out of the entire 22 million. That accounts for about 80 million. So now we should be able to deploy some intelligence. Now, the process of capturing over 230
yes.
abductees should be trackable. We discussed this last Friday, that this shouldn't be a rocket science. And now, at the risk of sounding, finally, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, who withdrew that the security details few hours to the abduction that took place in Kebbi? We need that answer as Nigerians. We have a right to know.
I think also it's very important that we do a post-mortem on everything that has happened. Yes, congratulations is in order to the parents, to the community, to the governor, to all who are involved. But we really need to look at this situation and see and call it what it is, call a spade a spade.
Indeed.
Because we have too many of these situations that keep repeating themselves in various states across the country. And what you said about, you know, looking at solutions that are are more diplomatic in terms of looking at how not just having boots on the ground, but finding ways to tackle this. You know, last week we spoke to Charles Eruka, who was in Niger State, and he was giving us a lot of information of what he was seeing. Other than that, we also had the discussion with the security expert who was telling us about the different ways that information is looked at and is disseminated. And your question came up once again: who gave that directive? And so we need to look at the nitty-gritties of this and not just look on the surface level and say that, oh, it's wonderful that we've gotten these children back. The choice of words in the headline says that they were released. So does that mean that is this the same situation as the group before them, where they were released as well? If you remember, the bandits were mocking, making videos online, saying that the government had been begging them to let them, you know, let these children go. So there's so many angles to look. But at the same time, I also want to just bolster your point as well about who actually gave this directive for the military to be pulled out at the last minute.
Okay, I mean, the other thing that is often not spoken about in all of these kidnappings, abductions, is the psychological impact on the students and teachers.
And the families.
And the families as well. Because what happens is that it is going to be affecting school enrollment.
Definitely.
A lot of students, at the end of the day, coming through this, they don't want to go back to school.
Yes.
So it's affecting school enrollment. It's affecting the learning environment. Because students are terrified whether if they return to school, they will be kidnapped again by the kidnappers. And again, we'll talk about student behavior. This could also affect student behavior, students acting out because of what they've been through and how traumatic that experience has been. So it is important that the government and the schools are looking into how students are going to be counseled, students are going to be taken care of psychologically, because this is a huge impact. You mentioned the out-of-school children. So you don't want more children to leave school. You actually want the enrollment to be bolstered. So this is something that has to be really looked at critically. We talked about the 47 unity schools that have been reopened. The other ones that were shut down through many states in the north, we haven't heard any announcement. Although this is Christmas period, the sense is that maybe they want to wait until the new year to finally open. However, what this says is that, you know, it really painted the government as one that was incapable to handle terrorists or kidnappers and abductors. And so here we are. Progress has been made. However, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of securing those schools and also making sure that this does not happen in the future. Let's look at Daily Independent this morning. Reps push for independent candidacy. The House of Representatives has proposed amendments to sections of the 1999 Constitution to allow independent candidates to contest the presidential, governorship, and National Assembly elections beginning 2027. The debate about independent candidacy has been with us for more than 2 decades. Proponents say the exclusive control of electoral participation by political parties restricts democratic choice and entrenches the dominance of a few political structures. They further argue that this has fueled godfatherism, the monetization of party primaries, and the imposition of candidates, while discouraging credible professionals and community leaders from participating in politics. The latest proposal is one of the most detailed attempts to constitutionally recognize independent candidacy, setting out specific thresholds, verification mechanisms, and regulatory powers for electoral authorities ahead of the elections. This is a major one, independent candidates. I mean, there are pros and cons, and as they said, we've been talking about this for quite a while. So they argue that it will break the dominance of political parties and godfatherism, which has become a very controversial issue or factor in politics in Nigeria. And we all know how that aids money politics, because when you support someone financially, because elections are very expensive, well, after supporting them, there is that sense that you're going to recoup your investment. That is what has been happening. So independent candidacy, they say, will break that. There's also talking about how it's gonna it weakens, you know, credible candidates. You know, discourages them from entering politics because they do not have, you know, there's no platform for them. There's no option for them to come into politics. So it's going to take care of that. On the flip side, independent candidates can also split votes, you know, and it can produce winners with very weak mandates, and that presents a problem in post-governance after the election. They may also lack nationwide networks, you know, even when they may be popular in one or two places. You need national spread in this country to win, for instance, the presidency. That may not be the case for local government chairman, for instance, or the state level. And then you talk about polling agents, funding, voter mobilization, machinery. All of these put together may be a disadvantage to an independent candidate. So you have it, advantages and disadvantages.
Indeed.
In reality, is Nigeria ready for such a move? Silence.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yes.
But that's why we're having the debate, and that's why we've been having the debate for 2 decades. You know, you might say someone wants to be an independent candidate, but do you have the wherewithal to run alone?
Okay.
And also, when we approve that, when we have that as an option in Nigeria, you might see 1 million people. Everybody wants to be an independent candidate without having what it takes to run independently.
Okay, now I'm particularly disturbed about the profusion of ideological views and also the erosion of this hardline ideologies. What we have seen is the politics of political survival and the race for the political future, defining the political landscape in our democratic framework. But now, when we look at the fact that Section 38 provides Nigeria that right of freedom of thought, religion, and conscience, I think that this new legal reform would address that and provide that space, widen the space where we could have democratic inclusion of Nigerians in this process. But I like the amendment of these laws when you say for you to be a chairman, you should have 10% of 2/3 of the electoral wards within your local government. So that would give you that endorsement, 10% of verified endorsements within the electoral wards within your local governments. But now the question is, how practical is this amendment? How do you determine the verification process? Because all these things has to be detailed. We cannot set our legislative framework on a trial version. I think there's a need for a more conscientious and systematic approach in redefining our electoral landscape, because that will determine the quality of life, whether you like it. At the long run, that will determine the quality of life, the quality of the leaders. Everything rises and falls on leadership. So the electoral process is the recruitment process of many of these applicants into these positions that would have a far-reaching effect and a redefining effect on the political life of every nation.
And you know, whether we like it or not, this is what democracy is about.
Right.
Indeed.
The choices of people,
Yes.
what they want, you know, what they are requesting, and then having conversations about whether or not. At the end of the day, the majority will have to carry the vote.
Yeah,
so we'll
actually,
see how
because when you
that
look at the cost of expression of interest and nomination forms, how many people that automatically excludes them.
Yes.
So with this now,
Very
it
well
gives that
said.
wider inclusion
Very well
into the
said.
process.
Well, let's see whether that passes through. Okay, another story, Vanguard newspaper. On a lighter but weighty note, Davido, our very own Davido, headline AFCON opening ceremony with French Montana, who was born in Morocco and raised in the US. So this is a homecoming for French Montana. But you know, to Davido and other Nigerian musicians that are brand ambassadors for us all over the world, it just underscores Africa's growing confidence in exporting not just football talent, but global cultural power. You know, this is what we are exporting right now. Before, it used to be mostly football. Everybody knew JJ Okocha and the rest of them, Kano Nwankwo. But now they're talking about musicians as well. So the continent is now using music to project modern African identity to a worldwide audience, because it is the world that is watching. So his presence there bridges sport, youth, culture, entertainment, and helping AFCON to transcend football tournament to
Indeed.
other demographics
Indeed.
and other
Indeed.
interests, all
Indeed.
across the world.
I like that they brought French Montana. Obviously, he's from Morocco, so it's likely that they would bring one of their own. But the Davido appearance really shocked me, because that just goes to show, shock not in the way that, we all know he's a big superstar, but shocking in that this is like an endorsement for Afrobeats. This is like something we already knew. We knew that Afrobeats was big, but to bring Davido, this is a world stage in Africa, it's really, really impressive. It's a very nice thing to see. The energy was great. It was such an entertaining opening. I think so many people really enjoyed that. Although I'm a bit sad that they're changing the rules a little bit. I think CAF officially announced that now AFCON will no longer be every 2 years. It'll now be every 4 years. And another highlight as well that they introduced is that the winning money now is not just 7 million as it was previously. It's now been upped to 10. So a lot of changes with AFCON, a lot of changes with how things are going. Yes, a lot at stake, and I mean, I think we're all just rooting for our teams.
Indeed. When you look at Davido, I think he's been consistent, and he has established himself as a global performer. It's also worthy to note that this is not the first time.
Absolutely.
He performed at the AFCON 2017. He performed at the 2023 Professional Football Leagues, and
I didn't know that.
Performed at the 2022 FIFA World Cup events. So he's been able to etch his name in global reckoning, and also performing alongside with French Montana. It's also very delightful to watch. So when you look at his performance after the With You, which he said he got inspiration from Bright Chimezie because of English. He had gone so doubly viral after that, and he has really made tremendous impact. I was surprised recently when I saw Jay-Z talking about Davido, Burna Boy, and Wizkid. So I think kudos to Nigeria's entertainment industry.
Everyone is wanting to cash in on this African culture and music entertainment train. You have foreign producers trying to come in and make deals with local producers. Hopefully we're able to keep that identity and culture, because by the time you begin to go global, it is good to have a global audience. At the same time, you want to keep what made you a star. What made you global in the first place?
The Minister of Creative Economy, Arts, Culture and Creative Economy said that before 2030 that the sector will be adding its own significant quota to boosting the GDP from the creative economy.
We look forward to
that. To the $1 trillion economy. So we look forward to that, and I think that this shows significant promises when you look at the radar in that sector.
Let's go to the international papers. Independent. Australian Prime Minister booed during an event to mourn victims of Bondi massacre. People say he's not doing enough to stop anti-Semitism. The Prime Minister had announced tough gun laws and a gun buyback program, but the majority say more could have been done to prevent the Sydney attack. And the Times newspaper, the Epstein files, explosive. At this point, everyone that is someone knows, Epstein, at least from the photos released so far. It just shows the extent of the man's reach in society.
Yeah, with the Bondi Beach incident, the massacre, it was very, very sad that 15 people lost their lives. I think all of last week, we kept watching these reports of how these two gentlemen opened fire. I believe it was a father and a son, and one of them was gunned down and the other one was arrested. But still, it was such an ugly experience because Australia has been going through it for a while now. I think many Jewish Australians are actually blaming the government for what has been going on now. There was another incident that happened in July where there was an arson attempt on a synagogue in Melbourne. It also made big news. And so now having this Bondi Beach massacre is just compounding the anger that people already have. And let's not forget, part of the theme that's been highlighted and repeated is that, especially by Benjamin Netanyahu, is that at UNGA, if you remember, Australia was one of the first countries to recognize Palestine as a state. So now they have come under tremendous fire, and people are now connecting the dots and saying, this is why this is happening. You're very passive about what is going on. So I really just hope that the country is able to pull through all of this controversy. When it comes to the Epstein files, that is a big mess in itself. I think there was about 95,000 documents and files that were released, but this past weekend I believe it was about 60 or so where they, they released released what they wanted the viewers to see, but now they release these files without context. So we don't have dates, we don't know when this happened, we don't know who took the photos, we don't have any information. And I think that's just what they want to do right now, is to leave people to kind of speculate before coming down and, you know, bringing in the details of what exactly happened. But there are a lot of high-profile names, such as Bill Gates, and so many people are trying to distance themselves from the Epstein files. It's really a big mess.
So if I may ask, okay.
Yes. Go ahead.
I just want to ask, so what implication has this in the whole of the unfolding scenario?
Oh my goodness, the implications. Can you imagine being high profile and being associated with a well-known pedophile? That is a complete assassination to anything that you are trying to build, whether it is a public profile, whether it's public office. And so for all of these people, it's in their best interest, and is what they're actually doing, to remove themselves from the situation, to bring out their story early, and to justify the relationship that they may have had with Jeffrey Epstein before he killed himself in 2019.
And this whole thing also shows how invincible Epstein was, or he felt he was, because
to
of
a great extent,
because of all the high-profile people he knew.
Yes.
You know, he was whining and dining with every name in the book. So he was confident committing those crimes, you know, without batting an eyelid, feeling that he would be brought to book any day, or that the police will even look, you know, towards him. And that is why when people say that there is suspicion that you know, he didn't commit suicide, that probably something, that suspicion is there, that because of the level of what we're talking about, and because of the massive troves of information that is now coming out, it shows that maybe something more sinister happened to him. And, you know, to Albanese, the great thing about Albanese is that he said, I take responsibility. Very tough position to be in. He's, you know, he recognized the state of the state of Palestine. Now there's a blowback. He's saying, I did what I did, I said what I said, and I stand by it, and I take full responsibility. But Australians are asking, we don't want Islamic craziness here. We want you to stand up as a political leader, as a prime minister, and do what you're supposed to do. We welcome everybody in Australia, but we do not want extremism within our country.
I'm disturbed about the perceived integrity of the U.S. system concerning the Epstein's issue. What do you think?
Perceived what?
In question on the U.S. integrity on the
U.S. integrity, you mean which
system.
The system itself?
These are individuals.
I mean, there are questions between Democrats and Republicans about why this is happening. Yeah, definitely there are questions regarding that. So we'll see. It's still unfolding. We'll see how it plays out.
There's still 65,000 more files.
All right. Those were your headlines today.